Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, one and all. It is 5:07 on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. A good Tuesday to everyone. Listen, we got a great show today. We got Mark Paoletta joining us, the senior fellow of the Center for Renewing America, co-editor of the book Created Equal. Clarence Thomas, in his own words, we're going to be talking about Kamala Harris's comments. She's making comments, Julie Gunlock, about court packing and Justice Thomas. We got Charlie Spearing, who has also written a book. He's a reporter for the Daily Mail. Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House to preview the debate tonight. We're actually having one of these, which surprises me. Bill O'Reilly is going to be joining us. Very excited about that. Also to talk about the debate and Byron York. I'm Andrew Langer, by the way. Hi, everybody. Good morning. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. I'm sitting alongside Julie Gunlock. Been eager to talk to you, Julie, since the weekend. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good morning and welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So those of you who know us know that Julie and I spend a lot of time on air. Well, not so much on air, but very much off air, talking about food and cooking because we are foodies. And when these stories about this spice shop, Penzeys Spices and Bill Penzy and his politics,
we were texting
broke.
Each other.
Oh, yes. Did you see this? Did you see this? And that was over the weekend with Kamala Harris visiting this spice shop. What I love about this story, Julie, is it again, it's like everything else. Listen, it's a presidential campaign. I guess I have to be clear about this. I know that these moments get manufactured, right? Nobody expected Tim Walz to just show up at the Minnesota State Fair and eat pork chops on a stick. Somebody handed that to him. But a lot of folks don't know, Kamala Harris going and visiting this retail store was not, it's not just sort of spontaneous. For those of you who are not in the know, Penzeys Spices. Julie, you want to explain Penzeys Spices to the uninitiated?
Yeah, you are much more skilled at explaining Penzeys Spice, but they're a chain of, you can go to, I think the vast majority of Americans go to the spice aisle at the grocery store and pick up their spices. Which is what I do now. Yes, what I do as well. But there are specialty shops. Sometimes they're just small businesses, individually owned. But Penzeys is actually a chain of spice shops all throughout the country. There's one in, I believe it's Falls Church in this area, and they're in most major cities. But it's a chain owned by a man and wife named Penzy, and they're the Ben and Jerry's of the spice world. I think that's fair. Yes, absolutely. So
it's one of those things where if you cook and you read cooking magazines, invariably the cooking magazines are going to recommend the spices from Penzeys, and I was a big fan of them. And then round about 2016, as so many folks were experiencing that well-known disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, the Penzy of Penzeys, Bill Penzy, went out there and made this audacious announcement that he didn't want any Republican customers anymore. Right. And I'm not making it up. It's not me sort of spinning what he said. No, he made it really clear that there were two Americas, and he only wanted one of those Americas in his store. So Kamala Harris going to a Penzeys Spices over the weekend in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, that is calculated. That is the ultimate kind of going to safe space. Like Kamala Harris didn't go to a Dollar Tree or some other store where
she didn't go to a neutral place. She went to a place. Bill Penzy has actually said, and I know you can explain this because you've tangled with Bill Penzy. But Bill Penzy has actually said Republicans can shop elsewhere. They're not welcome in my store. So for her to go into a Penzeys, as you said, she didn't go to a Dollar Tree. She didn't go to a neutral location. She is literally conveying that sort of Hillary Clinton deplorables message of, I'm going into sort of a Democrat-friendly environment.
Right.
And shopping.
It's the ultimate crutch. By the way, contrast that. I don't know if you guys talked about. Did you guys talk about the Elton John's remarks over the weekend yesterday?
No.
So just in contrast, you get Donald Trump, who has met Elton John. Anyway, just to real quick, it's a digression here. Variety tried baiting Elton John over the weekend into trashing Donald Trump for using Rocket Man as a song, and Elton John didn't take the bait. He says, I thought it was very clever. I've met Donald Trump many times. I know he listens to my music, but I thought it was a very light moment. And basically, it's like, why are you interrupting me here? The point is, Donald Trump goes into these spaces where he knows that people may not like him, but he likes their music. So Kamala Harris goes in. There is this moment where she's asked about this. Let's play cut number 1.
Are you ready to face Donald Trump?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Best part of debate prep for you? What's your favorite?
Being at the spice store, I finally got out of the debate prep to look at these spices.
Yeah.
Best part of debate prep so far.
So it's interesting, she said they asked her, "What is the best? Is this part of your debate prep?" She said, "This is the best part of debate prep." So essentially, it's so interesting when you think about the best part of debate prep, which is usually you're debating an issue, is her going into the safest space possible where she won't get any tough questions. So if that's her debate prep, going into a comfortable place, so that she won't face any tough questions, doesn't bode well for her.
No, it does not. So let me start teeing this up here. We'll continue to talk about it in a moment. So I was a huge Penzies fan, and when this happened, I sort of let it slide. Right, I let it slide. I figured, I'm not going to reach out to Penzies over this stuff. But in 2022, a bunch of ads started appearing in my Facebook feed, and it was essentially the narrative of Bill Penzie pleading poverty. Maybe not pleading poverty. That's maybe overstating it a bit, but pleading that he was being unfairly harassed by conservatives because of his political stances. And I read this, and it kept popping up, and I was getting annoyed for whatever reason because I'm an idiot, and I get annoyed by the stuff that pops up in my Facebook feed. So I dropped Bill Penzie a note, and it was I don't want to read the whole thing because it's a little long, but basically I was saying, you've done this to yourself. I was a loyal Penzies customer for years. I'm no longer a Penzies customer. But so long as you choose sides. Oh, and let me be really clear about this. Bill Penzie's sister and her husband, they have a rival spice company, and they've made it really clear they don't care about what your political affiliation is. They just want your money, which is really what any retail operation should want.
What is the name of the rival?
It's the Spice Palace.
Really?
You didn't know this?
Sister of Bill
Penzie.
Penzie.
Yeah, Bill Penzie's sister. Oh yeah,
and she's more reasonable.
Very much so. Very much so.
Really?
Listen, in the end of the day, I now just use McCormick spices because, frankly, they're somewhat local and it's easy and all of that jazz. But, I wrote back this thing, and I'll tell you what, I will come back to this because he wrote me back, and his response half hour later, the CEO of this spice company, I'm just writing from my Gmail account. It's not like I was writing from my then Institute for Liberty account or something. It's just me writing from my Gmail account, and he took the time to write me back. But tell you what, we'll get back to this. But first, it's 5:15 a.m.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Julie, I find it always very strange when politicians do try to be regular people. Kamala Harris talking about making greens at the dinner and washing them in her bathtub, which still creeps me out. But then talking about Sunday dinner, I'm looking forward to using my Penzie spices next Sunday. Does she cook? Is she cooking while she's out on the campaign trail? More power to her if she does.
When I came to Washington a long time ago, I was very good friends with a woman who worked up on Capitol Hill, and she was a very good cook. And I will just say that she was brought into a politician's house to prepare dinner that the politician's wife then took credit for.
Sure. Of course.
Red book spread, in a red book spread. And she and a friend of hers sort of left the Watergate apartment out the back door after, doing all the prep,
that's
all
funny.
but plating it for this politician's wife so that she could look like. So there's a lot of pretend and make believe that goes in Washington when it comes to trying to make them look like normal people.
Right. So Kamala Harris went to this spice store, and so I had this email exchange, which ended with, my first email to Bill Penzi was, he was talking about people being happily ever after, and I said, but that's not what you want. For you, happily ever after consists of only caring about people who agree with you, and what you're really talking about is only making money from those who agree with you. That's your right, certainly, but in doing so, you forfeit your right to think that there's something unfair about being criticized for it. Sincerely, me. And then the immediate reaction a half hour later, Julie, was, your side is racism. And then I get this diatribe about the 1965 Civil Rights Act and Republicans in 2022 voting against, voting in favor of repealing or not supporting the voting, whatever it is. And then he goes through, get used to that ad. Nothing we've ever done before has been as successful. Your side might still be able to gerrymander victories, but the vast majority of Americans really don't find cheaters likable.
Oh, dear.
And he goes on and he sums up with, my advice is to admit the Republican Party has a racism problem and honestly work to fix it quick. Your demographics have already run out. And we go back and forth for quite a bit here. And I mean, literally, we go back and forth for a couple of more emails. He starts talking about the Supreme Court. The last email I got from him. So this email exchange, Julie, started at 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock at night. He writes to me. Now, again, this is a former customer.
Gosh.
He writes, "Are you dishonest or just not bright?
Wow.
You understand one of the legacies of racism is white people are far more likely to be salaried and have a car than black people, don't you? You understand this means the difference between a lunchtime errand versus a day off from work and multiple bus transfers. My guess is that you are dishonest and cruel and lazy. Racists are fundamentally just after an advantage they never earned."
Well,
So
look,
that was Bill Penzi.
Hold
on, but let me
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hold on. Let me just. So my question to him a few minutes later was, tell me, Mr. Penzi, do you close your retail stores, corporate offices, and retail order operations for federal and state elections to allow your employees the time off to vote? And to which I got no response. Thus endeth the sermon. I'm sorry, Julie. Go ahead.
No. Well, I was just going to say, Bill Penzi has every right to run his private business however he wants.
Of
but
course.
There's a lot of competition out there. And what is interesting is that Bill Penzi and Penzi Spices is so specialized. It's something that really only the wealthy can afford, or those people who are so intensely interested in, a particular hobby, or, they are a professional chef. So he caters to a particular clientele, very wealthy people, certainly not the people he supposedly cares about. And I will say this, in this economy, companies like Penzi, people do not have money laying around to go to a Penzi Spices. They will go down the spice aisle at the grocery store and try to find that, buy one, get one free deal. That's how I buy spices.
Sure.
And
right.
Or I will buy, I sort of will buy high-end spices for certain things and lower-end spices for other things. But the point is, it's not good business. Again, he's welcome to run his business however he can. And to some degree, he is in such a niche market that maybe wealthy people always will buy Penzi Spices. But to me, this is not smart. I think people are sort of looking at companies like this that further divide people, and they're not interested. They're not interested in supporting these kinds of businesses.
And here's a pro tip. If you are so concerned, if you're a business person who is incredibly concerned about an issue of public policy, maybe you take steps within your own business practices to ameliorate that policy before you lecture to the rest of us about it. It's 5:22 a.m. We've got so much more to get to here on O'Connor & Company, WMAL. So I use McCormick's spices. I'm happy with it. It's a local company. They pretty much have everything that I want and need. I don't particularly need the fancy spice blends anymore, Julie. It was a tough decision, but I felt it was important.
I don't use those spice blends either, and frankly, that's not cooking. When you dump a bunch of spice blend on something, that's not cooking. But we've gone. That's a whole different cooking conversation.
Oh yes. Yes, no, I agree. So listen, we're going to continue to talk about the debate prep and the debate tonight because they are actually having one, seeing as how they've gone to the trouble of having one. I will have my prediction because I know, by the way, Julie, right now who is going to win this debate. I can tell you right now without having watched it. I will tease that up later on. I mean, I'm sure. Are you watching with bated breath tonight? What's going to happen?
Oh yeah, are you kidding? I mean, yeah, popping popcorn the whole bit. I'll definitely be watching.
More to come in a second. It is 5:29 a.m.
Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, it is 5:37 a.m. on News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news. A good Tuesday morning to one and all. I'm Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor, sitting alongside Julie Gunlock. Hello, Julie.
Good morning.
And as always, Julie, it's maybe 5:37 in the morning, and all this food talk has already made me hungry. So there you go. So we got a great show today, obviously. We got Mark Paoletta, senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America and co-editor of the book Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. And he's going to be talking about Kamala Harris and her plans for the Supreme Court. Listen, they've said what they want to do. Now it's just a matter of believing them. We've got Charlie Spearing from the Daily Mail, author of the book Amateur Hour, Kamala Harris in the White House, to preview the debate. They're going to the trouble of having one, even though we already know that the winning is a foregone conclusion. Bill O'Reilly and Byron York also joining us to talk about the debate itself. And we're going to talk more about this. I'll give you my prediction as to who's already won this debate. But in the meantime, we've talked about this issue. Thank you for that, Michael. The issue of the changing tactics and how the left used to, they used to be able to leave people alone if they disagreed. Now there is the demand for total fealty all the time. And I had forgotten. Listen, I had forgotten. I know at some point in time I knew that Cheryl Hines from Curb Your Enthusiasm was married to RFK Jr. But apparently she came in for some major criticism when RFK Jr. endorsed Trump, and she didn't say anything. Let's hear Bill Barr talked about this on his show on Friday. Let's hear what he had to say.
Now, look, I like Bobby and always will. And there are things he has been right about that no one else would touch. But yes, I also think he's weird. I couldn't support him for president. His wife is Cheryl Hines, who Larry David was quoted as describing as the best person I've ever met, the one person in Hollywood who doesn't have a single enemy. Well, now she does. Because she didn't throw her husband under the bus when her husband made a decision about something which she's made plain she disagrees with, but that didn't satisfy the obnoxious posers on the aforementioned far left. Thousands tweet screamed at Cheryl things like, "How do you live with yourself? Do better. I can't even enjoy the episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm with you in them anymore. It's no wonder Larry divorced you." Yeah, that's a character on TV, but okay.
But this is where we are in this day and age, isn't it, Julie?
Yeah, it is. And look, this is the authoritarian left. Last week we covered what the people in Delray, Alexandria, a neighborhood called Delray in Alexandria, Virginia, have been doing to the Vance family, who had the nerve to buy a home in that neighborhood. And now those neighbors who love to put kindness signs and all are welcome and hate has no home here.
Hate has no home here, unless you're J.D. Vance.
Yes, like to terrorize that family, dox them, post pictures on social media of the house with red arrows painted, sort of showing the Vance house. It's sickening. And the same thing is happening to Cheryl Hines, who has no role in this. This is RFK, who has been involved in politics basically since birth, making a decision that many people think was brave and provocative. And she is married to him. She is loyal to her husband. And she is, I think, handled this with grace and good humor. And the left, well, we know they have no sense of humor. So.
No. I agree with you. I'm sorry. I interrupted you there because you mentioned good humor. But here is Bill Maher talking specifically about Bradley Whitford. For those of you who don't remember, Bradley Whitford, he was a mainstay character on The West Wing, which I'm now watching for the first time because I
really
for punch. Yeah, I never watched it. Did we not have this conversation? I didn't watch it then. I mean, it was, but back then I didn't want to watch, Aaron Sorkin's.
Well, you had worked in politics, so you didn't want to come home and watch politics.
Yes.
Yeah,
this is why I like Veep, because Veep to me is this accurate portrayal. But yeah, so I'm watching it now, and it is, by the way, eerily predictive of many of the things that are happening in politics today. But Bradley Whitford is, the communications guy, political guy. He's a political guy at the White House. And tries to be, he wears his liberalism on his sleeve, but even he would have, the Josh Lyman character would have been aghast at what's going on here. Anyway, here is Bill Maher talking about Bradley Whitford going after Cheryl Hines. Let's play cut 5.
The tweet that got the most attention was from actor Bradley Whitford, who wrote, "Hey, Cheryl Hines, way to stay silent while your lunatic husband throws his support behind the adjudicated rapist who brags about stripping women of their fundamental rights. Gutsy. Great example for the kids, profiling courage." Yeah. Well, you know what I think is not gutsy? Mansplaining to a woman, but of course not to her face. How she should sacrifice her marriage. Also, you could read something on Twitter that met with your approval. You want to know why I have a bug up my about the left more than I used to? It's like this. There's an ugliness they never used to have. The liberals I grew up respecting, none of them are like this. Going after the wife, even the mafia doesn't do that.
No. All right, we can end it there. We got listen. That's not to say that the left was free of ugliness. Certainly they weren't, but I understand the ones that he is respecting here. We've got so much more to get to. It's 5:43 here on W. Oh, I do love getting together with Julie Gunlock because I will say things and she will start laughing, and then she'll tell me later on what she was laughing about. Listen, things that you can't laugh about. Here's a ham-handed segue, Julie Gunlock. We've got a real listen. When the left promises something, you have to believe them.
Yeah.
When Kamala Harris promises that she wants to seize the patents of drug manufacturers in the name of prescription drug prices, you got to believe her. When the left is talking about packing the Supreme Court, you've got to believe them that this is what they want to do. Mark Paoletta is going to be joining us at 7:05. And this is the discussion right now. He writes, attention, Kamala Harris supports Supreme Court packing plan that will disqualify Justice Clarence Thomas in May 2025 from participating in almost every case. It's the most radical assault on the Supreme Court's independence. Harris must be defeated in November. I mean, this is what they want to do. They want to fundamentally change. They it's funny. Again, coming back to Bill Penzi. Bill Penzi wrote to me and said that people don't like cheaters. But this is exactly what they're doing here. The left is doing is they don't like the fact that the Republicans have been winning on the Supreme Court nomination game. Not that I consider it a game. So they want to change the rules, don't they?
Yeah, and it was interesting over the weekend, or I think it was on Friday, Liz Cheney came out and her father came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. And Liz Cheney went on to speak about her decision. She said, "I am a conservative," which is hilarious. And then she said, I I care about the Constitution. So as a conservative who cares about the Constitution, you're going to endorse the person who is for unlimited abortion and who wants to destroy the Supreme Court. That makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, this is, again, these are the pretzels that people are sort of twisting themselves into because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. And if you care about the Supreme Court, if you care about the integrity of the Supreme Court, and really the last of our institutions that have not been destroyed by the left, then you shouldn't vote for Kamala Harris. You know, I'm frustrated by people who, I'm equally frustrated by people who are like, oh, I'm too good for this. I'm not voting for anyone, right? Those people frustrate me too. But really what I cannot wrap my head around is those who claim to be conservatives, who claim to care about the Constitution, and then support this woman who will destroy this nation.
Well, right. I mean, let's start here with not even who claim to care about the Constitution. If you are a conservative, are you somehow thinking that the woman who was ranked the most liberal member of the United States Senate, that somehow she is somehow more conservative than Donald Trump, is an insane way of doing this? Or you're going to punish Donald Trump and you're going to punish conservatives by voting for the most liberal senator in the United States Senate? I mean, it really is just nuts. It's so funny because I told you I was at this event last night. And I'll say this was a libertarian event, small L libertarian event. I want to be really clear about that. And, you know, somebody walks up to me and again, very, very strange. This is D.C. But you should know better. Julie, I mean, do you ever walk up to somebody and sort of random person and say, so who are you voting for next month,
so
in a month and a half?
No, first of all, Andrew, I don't go out anymore. Okay, Andrew,
well,
I don't go out anymore. Okay,
yes.
But then if I did, yes, I'm sure some idiot would come up.
This guy walked up to me and he's like, he puts out his hand. He says, hey, I'm so-and-so. So who are you going to vote for in November? I'm like, wait, what? And of course, because this is this particular event, I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to say about this. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, being as I'm at a libertarian event, I'm going to exercise my right not to tell you who I'm voting for, and sort of moved on from there. But I mean, this is where we are. I'm happy to talk about the issues. I'm happy to sort of go down this road and talk about this how dangerous this idea is. What I also love about this story that's popped up, Julie, is Vice President Harris has signaled, using air quotes, signaled her support for radical legislation that would allow a new Supreme Court justice to be appointed to the bench every 2 years. Sheldon Whitehouse says, they have not gone so far as to say we endorse your bill. They have said that your bills are precisely aligned with what we're talking about. Only in D.C. can that not be the same thing. It really is amazing to me. And this is, it's funny because you talk about this, and folks who claim to care about the Constitution and Democrats who claim to care about the Constitution. This is the same. Sheldon Whitehouse, I'm sure he's on board with Elizabeth Warren's Stop Corporate Capture Act. We've just had the Supreme Court enunciate that there is this thing called federalism. There is this thing called separation of powers. And the most liberal members in the United States Senate, they don't care about this. They want to throw even more power in a federal executive branch that wants to abuse that power.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nuts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really look. I mean, it is a very clear choice this election year, and one is for preserving the Constitution and our way of life, and one is for massive destruction. I really don't understand the confusion here. Kamala Harris she was left of Bernie Sanders.
Right.
So, again, we also are not going into this blind. We know what 4 years of a Trump presidency brought us. Prosperity, global security,
right,
wealth, okay,
peace.
More freedom and peace. So it's not a great mystery to voters. And I think most sense this. I think they say, you know what, we've been through a Trump presidency before.
Listen.
None of these things came true.
Listen, if Donald Trump is an authoritarian, then he's the worst authoritarian ever because he's actually someone who shrunk the size and scope of federal executive branch power. That's not what authoritarians do. They grow executive branch power. It's 5:53 here on WMAL.